Alright travelers, version 5.8 is here, and you know what that means. It's tier list time. We've gone through every single 5-star and 4-star character, checked out the latest buffs, nerfs, and shiny new synergies, and ranked them for their main DPS, sub DPS, and support roles. Oh, and yes, we've also given each character a fresh C0 rating so you'll know exactly how they perform without constellations. This list is hot off the press for August 2025, and trust me, some placements might surprise you. We're keeping this guide updated daily, so if Hoyoverse drops any sneaky changes or you find that your favorite character suddenly feels like a god tier monster, we'll have it covered. Whether you're deciding who to wish for next, figuring out how to build your team, or just here to see if your main made the cut, sit back and enjoy. Let's dive into the 5.8 tier list and see who's ruling Teyvat right now. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking characters in Genshin Impact. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Razor, Dehya, Xinyan, and Aloy. Sub DPS: Xinyan, Traveler Geo, Amber, Traveler Anemo, and Traveler Hydro. Support: Noelle, Chongyun, Lisa, and Xinyan. Alright, let's talk about the characters that, well, let's just say, if Teyvat had a popularity contest for damage dealers, these guys would be in the thanks for showing up section. We are diving into the D rank list for main DPS, sub DPS, and support, the underdogs, the maybe next patch heroes, and the I swear they're good if you build them right favorites. First up for main DPS, we have Razor. Now, Razor is like that one friend who insists on mixing two totally different drinks at a party. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's just weird. His elemental burst gives you consistent superconduct coverage, blending electro and physical damage. Great in theory, but in practice, he's kinda stuck in a middle ground that leaves him overshadowed by the flashier big hitters in the game. Then we have Dehya. Oh, Dehya! Her elemental skill and burst damage just never really pop off unless you stack her with multiple buffs. And the cherry on top? She needs a ton of energy just to get her burst back again. Plus, she's one of those characters who truly blossoms only after you unlock several constellations, which is basically Genshin's polite way of saying, open your wallet, traveler. Xinyan takes the stage next. On paper, she can use her elemental burst as a big physical nuke, and for physical builds, that sounds promising. But the problem is her scaling. She's split between attack and defense. You kinda have to pick one, and whichever you choose, her performance feels like it's missing that extra punch. She's a rock star with the volume turned down. Aloy, our guest from another game, has her own quirks. She can increase her normal attack damage with her elemental skill, but here's the catch. You have to hit enemies with those little bomblets first to get the cryo infusion, and since she has no constellations at all, she's basically locked at her current potential forever. No upgrades, no spicy endgame surprises, just Aloy. Moving into the sub DPS side of D rank, Xinyan makes her second appearance on the list. She can deal off-field pyro damage over time with her elemental skill, which can be decent for Burgeon or other pyro-related reactions, but it is inconsistent. At Constellation 2, she gets a guaranteed critical hit when using her burst, which is fun for quick swap builds, but let's be honest, she's still not going to steal the spotlight. Traveler Geo shows up with some interesting tools. High elemental skill damage? Check. Ability to block enemies with both skill and burst? Also check. And at Constellation 4, an increase to burst recharge rate. The problem is, while that all sounds good, it's just not enough to lift them above solid but forgettable status in the grand scheme of Genshin. Amber, our Pyro Archer and Queen of Memes, can actually bring some utility. Her burst applies AoE Pyro, her skill taunts enemies away from your main DPS, and if you go all the way to Constellation 6, she gives the whole team a buff with her burst. The thing is, people rarely build her that far unless they really love Amber. Traveler Anemo has one simple job: crowd control. Elemental skill, AoE crowd control. Elemental burst, even bigger AoE crowd control. And while that's nice, the damage just isn't enough to keep them in the higher ranks, so they often end up being a niche pick. Traveler Hydro, oof, the playstyle feels clunky, the elemental burst is forgettable, and Hydro application is unreliable. It's like trying to water your plants with a leaky bucket. Technically it works, but you're not going to be winning any gardening competitions. Finally, the D rank supports. Noelle can heal with her normal and charged attacks, but only if she's on field and has her shield active. That shield also comes with a long cooldown, so her healing uptime isn't exactly impressive. Chongyun, on the other hand, provides attack speed increase and cryo infusion for melee characters through his elemental skill. He's also got great energy recharge, making his cryo application nice and steady, but again, steady does not mean spectacular. Lisa brings a straightforward benefit, lowering enemy defense by 15% thanks to her passive talent. And lastly, Xinyan pops in for the third time to offer a decent shield that scales based on how many enemies she hits, which is neat, but still not enough to push her out of the D rank basement. If nothing else, these characters prove that even in D rank, there's a spark of potential. They may not be meta monsters, but with the right team and a lot of love, they can still shine, in their own awkward, scrappy way. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Eula, Mizuki, Yanfei, Heizu, Klee, Kaveh, Kokomi, Freminet, and Ningguang. Sub DPS, Kachina, Dehya, Lisa, Chongyun, and Sayu. Support, Dahlia, Kichi, Barbara, Traveler Electro, Rosaria, Candice, and Dory. Alright, C rank is where things get a little spicy. Not exactly meta-breaking, but definitely not the bottom of the barrel either. These characters can put in work, but they come with a few caveats that keep them from breaking into the higher tiers. They're like the B-side tracks of your favorite album. Still good, but you might skip them if you're in a hurry to get to the hits. Let's start with Eula. When her elemental burst lands, it's like watching fireworks. Massive AoE physical damage, especially if the enemy is superconducted. Add in the fact that consuming 2 stacks from her elemental skill debuffs enemies and boosts her damage, and you have a DPS powerhouse. That is, until the burst misses or fails to crit. Then it's like showing up to a party and realizing the DJ forgot the music. Next up is Mizuki, our on-field Anemo driver for swirl compositions. She's great at boosting swirl damage and keeping the team sustained, but she has an odd restriction. She cannot use her normal attacks while her elemental skill is active. That's like telling a chef they can only stir the pot but never taste the food. She does have some off-field presence and fantastic constellations though, which makes her a solid pick if you've invested in her. Yanfei, our pyro-legal expert, delivers strong, normal, and charged attacks, as expected from a 4-star. Her biggest drawback is stamina consumption. She burns through it faster than I burn through Primogems during a banner. Luckily, at Constellation 1, things get easier and her playstyle feels more fluid. Then there's Heizu, the martial artist with style. He can be built for swirl damage or critical hits, acting either as a Viridescent Venerer driver or a quick-swap burst dealer. His elemental skill hits like a truck when set up properly, but the rest of his kit doesn't quite keep up, leaving him a bit too reliant on that one big punch. Klee is pure chaos in a tiny package. She can clear waves of enemies with her normal and charged attacks, but her playstyle is notoriously clunky. To get the most out of her, you have to micromanage rotations like a professional juggler, and if you mess up, it shows. Kaveh steps in as a Dendro driver specifically for Bloom teams, bringing some buffs along the way. The problem? His personal damage output is low. He's like the guy who organizes the team project but doesn't actually do much of the writing. Kokomi is the ultimate healer-turned-driver for Bloom and electro-charged reactions. She's self-sufficient and can heal herself without breaking a sweat. But since she cannot crit, her damage ceiling is capped unless you pair her with teams and artifacts that help her dish out more numbers indirectly. Freminet is an interesting hybrid. He can go full cryo or lean into physical DPS depending on your team composition. Unfortunately, his 4-star rarity means his stats don't scale high enough to compete with the big leagues without serious investment. Ningguang closes out the main DPS C rank with stylish geo attacks. Her normal and charged attacks can pack a punch, but she really shines with higher constellations. Without them, her potential feels locked behind a door you can only open with luck, or a lot of wishes. For sub DPS, Kachina offers decent off-field damage and multiple utility options. Plus, she can equip the Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City, a rare artifact set that's basically a secret weapon for Natlan units. Dehya returns here as an off-field pyro applicator for reactions like Burgeon, but just like in her main DPS role, she really needs more constellations to feel impactful as a 5-star. Without them, her performance feels lukewarm. Lisa gets a boost here with her Elemental Burst, which provides solid AoE electro application. At Constellation 2, she even buffs defense for allies and makes her debuff easier to apply, which is a nice touch for coordinated teams. Chongyun slides into sub DPS with a quick swap Elemental Burst that can hit surprisingly hard. Low energy cost means he can spam it often, making him a reliable choice if you need a cryo nuke in your rotation. Sayu is a more niche pick, acting as a driver for swirl-related reactions with her elemental skill. She can also apply Viridescent Venerer at high constellations, but that high energy cost makes it tricky to keep her burst up consistently. And now for the C-rank support lineup. Dahlia provides a Hydro Shield and attack speed buffs, great for freeze teams, but not essential in every composition. Chi-Chi's healing is off the charts, but her cooldowns are long, and her energy generation is so low, you'll be waiting ages for her burst. Barbara brings burst healing and an aura to keep the party healthy, and at Constellation 6, she can even revive fallen allies, which is great if you're, let's say, experimenting with new team builds. Electro Traveler offers energy refill support and increased recharge for allies, though other characters often outperform them in this niche. Rosaria buffs crit rate for the whole team and can shred physical resistance at Constellation 6, making her a fantastic partner for physical damage mains. Candace infuses normal attacks with Hydro and boosts their damage, but her best use cases are pretty situational. Finally, Dori provides energy recharge and okay single-target healing while doubling as an Electro applicator when enemies are near her tether. Not flashy, but practical when you need her. Would you like me to now merge the D rank and C rank into one continuous YouTube-style script so the tone flows seamlessly? I can keep the same conversational and witty energy. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, main DPS, Wanderer, Yoimiya, Sethos, Ito, Sino, Keking, Aoife, Sucrose, and Noelle. Sub DPS, Albedo, Ayato, Kokomi, Toma, Kaya, Traveler Dendro, Lynette, and Zhongli. Support Yunjin, Sara, Goru, Mika, Mizuki, Sigawini, Sayu, Toma, and Dehia. B rank is where things start to get fun. These are characters that can absolutely shine in the right hands, but they usually need a little extra love, synergy, or constellation luck to push them higher. They're not meta tyrants, but they're strong enough that you can bring them into harder content without feeling like you're trolling your co-op teammates. Let's start with Wanderer. His normal attacks have a big AoE and even home in on enemies, which makes him feel smooth to play. His elemental skill lets him float mid-air. Fantastic for exploration. But in combat, he needs very specific supports to really hit his stride, especially at low constellations. Think of him as a Formula 1 car. Amazing speed, but only if the pit crew is perfect. Yoimiya is all about those pyro-infused normal attacks from her elemental skill. The scaling is great, but to keep her from getting interrupted mid-combo, she benefits a lot from supports that increase attack speed and resistance to interruption. Without that, it can feel like you're playing a high-stakes game of don't sneeze while firing arrows. Sethos is versatile. You can spam charged attacks or go for normal attack spam through his elemental burst depending on your energy situation. Charged attack mode, though, makes him stationary and prone to being smacked around, and as a 4-star, his stats are naturally lower. Great flexibility, but not quite top-tier damage. Ito is a Geo powerhouse with insane scaling on his charged attacks and elemental skill, especially during his burst. The catch? You absolutely need that burst to deal damage, and swapping out ends it instantly. On top of that, he demands a lot from your artifacts, weapons, and team comp. A true all-in investment kind of DPS. Sino thrives as an electro-hyper carry in Dendro reaction teams, like Aggravate and Hyper Bloom. His burst damage can be great, but he suffers from poor interruption resistance, which can throw off his rotation. If enemies keep booping you out of your attacks, your DPS drops faster than your sanity in Spiral Abyss Floor 12. Keking is enjoying her glow-up thanks to Dendro reactions. Both her Aggravate build and physical build are competitive now, making her a much more viable pick than before. She's smooth to play and stylish, though she still isn't breaking into S-tier territory. Aoife plays similarly to Sucrose or C2 Mizuki as an on-field swirl driver, but with a focus on electro-charged reactions. He can heal and use normal attacks, making him a bit more flexible. The downside is he's tied to a specific archetype and character synergy, but he's free-to-play friendly, which is a big plus. Sucrose is the classic elemental mastery battery and enemy grouper. As an on-field driver, she boosts the whole team's elemental mastery and can cluster enemies together. She might not hit the hardest herself, but she makes everyone else hit harder, which is often more important. Noelle in B rank? Yes, and for good reason. She balances attack and defense to deal sustained damage, has self-healing, and her shield keeps her safe. At Constellation 6, her damage spikes hard, turning her into a tanky blender that just won't quit. On the sub-DPS side, Albedo remains a great pick with his semi-permanent geofield that dishes out passive damage. The drawback is that his field can be destroyed by bosses or environmental effects, and his best weapon isn't obtainable anymore, which hurts his ceiling. Ayato's elemental burst is huge both in size and duration, giving steady hydro application and a solid damage base. It's perfect to drop at the start of your rotation so it keeps working while your main DPS goes to town. Kokomi is an off-field hydro queen with her jellyfish elemental skill. Pair her with the ocean-hued clam set, and even her healing turns into damage. She's not flashy, but she's reliable. And reliability wins fights. Toma earns a spot here for his pyro application and synergy with Burgeon reactions. With Constellation 2 and 4, his uptime and energy issues get fixed, making him much smoother to play. Kea is still a dependable cryo sub DPS with his short elemental skill cooldown and solid coverage for freeze, melt, or superconduct teams. His scaling isn't massive, but his utility and flexibility keep him relevant. Traveler Dendro is surprisingly solid with their fast Lotus Lamp Dendro damage and elemental mastery scaling, making them a good reaction enabler. Lynette offers decent viridescent debuffing, but needs more constellations to compete with the top Anemo supports. Zhongli can petrify enemies with his burst and offers unmatched shielding, though his Geopillar's scaling is lackluster and it can be destroyed easily. As for B-rank supports, Yunjin boosts normal attack damage with her burst, especially in teams with multiple elements. At Constellation 6, she even gives attack speed, amazing for certain carries. Sarah is the go-to ATK buffer for Electro teams at Constellation 6, though she's clunky and energy-hungry before that. Goru is the undisputed king of Geo support for DF scaling teams, becoming a true all-in-one support at C6. Mika can boost physical damage and attack speed while offering burst healing, though he's only truly valuable for a handful of characters. Mizuki can buff swirl damage and sustain allies, but has restrictions that limit her support potential. Sigawini is comfy for overworld healing, but has low uptime on heals and buffs. Sayu's off-field healing is wide-reaching and scales with elemental mastery, improving further with constellations. Toma returns here with his pyro shields that refresh on normal attacks, and at C6, he adds bonus damage to shielded characters. Finally, Dehya offers strong interruption resistance and damage mitigation with her pseudo shield, alongside decent pyro application. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, main DPS, Raiden, Xiao, Tartaglia, Diluc, Ayato, Ganyu, and Tignari. Sub DPS, Nilou, Venti, Ganyu, Mona, Traveler Pyro, Beidou, Kali, Rosaria, and Sucrose. Support, Inefa, Lanyan, Kokomi, Faruzan, Venti, Diona, Yao Yao, Charlotte, Layla, Kirara, and Shinobu. Alright, a rank. Now we're talking serious business. These characters are the ones who can dominate fights if played correctly. They have strong scaling, reliable damage, and utilities that make them stand out in any team composition. Basically, if you pull one of these, congratulations, you've got a real contender. Raiden Shogun starts us off. Her elemental burst keeps her on field and can deal absurd amounts of damage in just 7 seconds. With her Constellation 2, she even ignores enemy defense, which basically lets her shred through anyone standing in her way. If you're looking for a top-tier obliterator, Raiden is your go-to. Xiao comes next. His elemental burst ramps up his overall damage at the cost of his own HP, which adds a risk-reward factor to playing him. His normal attacks and elemental skill allow for some crazy high-damage combos, but you do need supports to heal him and boost offensive stats to reach his full potential. Tartaglia is a Hydro monster. His Riptide applies strong Hydro to multiple enemies and makes him arguably the best driver for Vaporize reactions. If you want Hydro DPS that can hit a crowd and scale reactions, he's the king here. Diluc is all about weaving his normal attacks with elemental skill, making his rotations feel buttery smooth. His elemental burst costs little energy and covers a wide area, though it can push back lighter enemies, slightly annoying for crowd control setups. Pair him with supports like Xingqiu, and you've got a Vaporize machine. Ayato brings wide-range, continuous Hydro-infused normal attacks after using his elemental skill. His elemental burst self-buffs his normal attacks, and his on-field, off-field Hydro application makes him an excellent driver for Hydro-related elemental reactions. Ganyu's level 2 charge shot is perfect for mobs, especially with melt setups. She does take time to charge her shots and can be interrupted easily, but her elemental burst, combined with ally pull-in effects, hits enemies in one location with devastating efficiency. Tignari focuses on charged attacks and elemental burst damage. Spread Dendro reactions are his main source of high damage, and his taunt helps distract enemies, giving him a little bit of crowd control along with raw damage. On the sub-DPS side, Nilou shines in Dendro core reaction setups like Bloom. Her damage is top tier for AoE content, but she's restricted to Dendro plus Hydro team comps, so she's a niche pick. Venti is your crowd control king. His elemental burst can swirl enemies into one spot, making AoE setups easy. High energy recharge helps keep him up and running, though he struggles with heavy, hard-to-pull enemies. Constellations also reduce enemy elemental resistances, making him even more impactful. Ganyu doubles as a sub-DPS too. Her elemental burst sets up cryo reactions like freeze, and with enough energy recharge, she can spam it off cooldown. Great for controlling mobs and amplifying team damage. Mona provides off-field hydro application through her elemental skill, and her elemental burst massively amplifies reaction damage. She's a favorite for hydro-based reactions and burst combos, though positioning is key. Traveler Pyro offers off-field pyro application and nuking potential with their elemental burst. They're a bit slower than Xiangling and have lower uptime, and upgrading them isn't super new player friendly. Beidou works well as an off-field electro sub-DPS. Her attacks arc between enemies for AoE coverage, but she has high energy requirements and often needs electro batteries or energy recharge supports to maintain uptime. Kale dishes off field dendro damage for reaction setups. Her elemental burst AoE is small, so enemies can dodge out of it easily, but she's perfect for triggering reactions from a safe distance. Rosaria brings off-field cryo with her burst, great for freeze teams, and decent for melt. At Constellation 2, her burst duration increases, making her even more reliable. For her rank supports, Inefa offers durable shields that last the duration of her skill and scale with her offensive stats. She can also provide herself and the active character a solid amount of elemental mastery, making her both defensive and reactive. Lan Yan gives sturdy shields that interact with swirlable elements, and with Constellation 2, she refreshes shields via normal attacks. Kokomi is a staple healer and off-field hydro applicator, essential for freeze and some bloom teams. Faruzan buffs Anemo damage and reduces enemy Anemo resistance, though she has extremely high energy requirements without her Constellation 6. Venti, again as a support, provides consistent crowd control and viridescent Venerer coverage, but struggles against enemies that resist pull-ins. Diona offers shields, heals, and off-field cryo. At Constellation 6, she even buffs elemental mastery. Yao Yao applies Dendro and heals off-field with her elemental skill, while her elemental burst delivers strong party-wide healing. Just keep her on field to get full value. Charlotte provides panic healing with a small AoE, improving with her constellations. Layla gives strong shields and off-field damage with her elemental skill, which synergizes with tenacity of the Millilith artifact. Kirara is a solid shield provider for Bloom cores or general utility. Finally, Shinobu heals in intervals with a short cooldown, but her healing is limited to the on-field character. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Varesa, Mualani, Kinich, Chaska, Gaming, Navia, Alhaitham, Hutao, Laini, Ayaka, Riathesli, and Clorinde. Sub DPS, Inefa, Emily, Raiden, Fischl, Kiori, Yaimiko, Shinobu, and Ororon. Support, Escoffier, Chevruz, Raiden, Xianyun, Beiju, Mona, Shenhei, Jean, and Sucrose. S-rank, Sain, Swan, Ye, and Simin, Cyan. Now we're entering the "oh wow, you pulled that" tier. These are the characters that can make or break a team, and in the right hands, they'll make every Abyss floor feel like a walk in the park. You better buckle up, because these picks are insane. Varesa kicks things off as a plunge attacker with high base damage. She doesn't rely on reaction amplifiers like some other characters, making her smooth and easy to play. Casual or hardcore, she hits her potential without needing a ton of investment, especially with accessible buffers like Ian San or Chevruz. Mualani brings front-loaded damage that's excellent for single target and AoE alike. She shines in vaporized setups, and exploration is a breeze thanks to her mobility. Just watch out for Sharky's bite. It can miss if you're not careful. Kinich is a specialist for burning or burgeon teams. He's extremely mobile, and his grappling hook makes exploration fun, though combat on uneven terrain can be tricky. Outside of burning or burgeon setups, he generates Night Soul points slower, limiting his Scale Spiker cannon usage. Chaska thrives in rainbow teams where she can convert her damage into multiple elements: Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo. She's excellent for exploration thanks to flight, but in AoE situations her bullets split across enemies, so she's technically more of a single target dealer in practice. Gaming overperforms as a 4-star at Constellation 6 with high plunging damage. He's reliant on using his elemental burst off cooldown to keep his damage rolling, but if you have that rotation down, he's a monster. Navia has front-loaded elemental skill damage that can one-shot mid-level mobs and chunk bosses per rotation. Flexible team building is her strong suit, as she isn't tied to mono Geo. Front-loaded damage has its downsides for sustained DPS though. Alhaitham's Dendro application is fantastic for setting up Hyper Bloom, Burgeon, or Spread reactions. He has excellent AoE coverage and top-tier overall team damage, all with minimal investment. Hu Tao deals insane single-target pyro damage via her elemental skill and charged attacks. Her skill infuses attacks with pyro and increases damage at the cost of HP. Constellation 1 allows you to spam charged attacks without using stamina, basically letting her melt bosses like butter. Liney compensates for lacking elemental reactions in mono pyro teams thanks to his passive. He deals high damage on single target and AoE, though he's susceptible to interruptions, so positioning is key. Ayaka infuses cryo into normal and charged attacks after sprinting, giving near-permanent cryo application. Her elemental burst scales ridiculously high, and with the best supports, she can rival the top DPS, though she needs high investment. Ryo Thesli is a close combat main DPS that specializes in melt or freeze reactions. His kit really comes together at Constellation 1, and while he's great against single targets, spread out mobs give him trouble. Clorind is flexible for team building, has a snappy playstyle, and provides self-healing in the overworld. Damage scales with team setup, but she lacks interruption resistance at Constellation 0. For sub-DPS, Ineffa enables lunar charged reactions, Cry-T's hard, and brings great personal damage. Her electro application is near constant, and she even shields herself. Emily excels on burning teams with over 100% uptime on pyro application, constantly keeping the enemy on fire. Raiden as sub-DPS triggers Hyper Bloom and other reactions, giving insane versatility. Fischl's Oz stays on field for continuous electro damage. She's best at full constellations to maintain optimal uptime, but switching between elemental skill and burst ensures Oz remains permanent. Kiori provides strong Geo application for crystallize and smooth party swaps. Yaimiko deals high damage via her elemental skill, but requires setup. She excels in Dendro reaction comps. Shinobu is currently a top Hyper Bloom trigger and a must-have for mobile electro application and healing. Her kit also scales with elemental mastery for healing, freeing up a slot for another DPS. Auroron is excellent for electro charge setups, but underperforms outside of that niche. As for S-rank supports, Escoffier provides superb resistance shred and healing, but is tied to specific elemental setups, excelling in cryo or freeze teams. Chevreuse offers RES shred, ATK buffs, and healing, especially strong for overloaded teams at Constellation 6, though niche in application. Raiden increases elemental burst damage and refills team energy, letting skills rotate almost off cooldown. Xianyun enhances plunge playstyles with healing and buffs, while Baizhu is a reliable comfort healer with shielding and off-field dendro. Mona debuffs enemies to amplify main DPS damage and adds minor crowd control. Shenhei is the best buffer for cryo teams, lowering enemy physical and cryo resistance with her burst. Jean provides crowd control with her skill and massive AoE healing with her burst, while Constellation 4 even adds a Nemo resistance shred for DPS. Sucrose rounds things out with crowd control and swirl damage, boosting elemental mastery for the entire party, making reactions hit harder than ever.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Mavuika, Neuvillette, Skirk, and Arlecchino. Sub DPS, Furina, Yelan, Escoffier, Nahida, Xingqiu, Mavuika, and Shangling. Support, Furina, Zilenin, Bennett, Ian-san, Kazuha, Sitlali, Nahida, and Zhongli. Alright, now we've officially entered the S+ stratosphere, the kind of characters that make other players cry in the abyss because they just exist. These are the true showstoppers, the ones you build teams around, the ones that can solo floors if you play them right. Buckle up, because we're going full power mode. Starting with main DPS, Mavuika is basically absurd. Her elemental burst scales insanely high, and she's flexible enough to be on-field, off-field, or quick swap. She excels in vaporize and melt reactions and packs the exploration abilities of nearly every Natlan character into one powerhouse. Neuvillette is your self-sufficient one-man army. Charged attacks deal constant, outstanding damage, and Constellation 1 removes his major weaknesses, making him extremely reliable in basically any scenario. Skirk ranks SS tier with Escoffier, but S tier otherwise. She's fantastic on freeze teams, easy to control, fluid in combat, and a joy to explore with, although she needs her niche to truly shine. Arlecchino hits hard even outside Vaporize or overloaded setups. Normal attacks are swift, wide, and pack a punch, making her viable for single-target, AoE, and overworld content. She's high risk, though, not for the faint-hearted early players. For S+ sub DPS, Furina can apply Hydro off-field almost infinitely thanks to her cooldowns. She scales insanely well in damage, though she may not surpass veterans like Xingqiu or Yelin in raw Hydro uptime. Yelin is a sub DPS monster with a powerful elemental burst that sets up Hydro reactions while buffing active characters. Her elemental skill deals strong damage and generates tons of energy for her burst, and it can group enemies together for optimal AoE reactions. Escoffier is the freeze king of off-field damage, with resistance, shredding, and healing. He's a plug-and-play option for freeze teams, but a little niche outside of that. Nahida is a must for Dendro teams. Her elemental skill deals excellent off-field damage, applies Dendro multiple times, and benefits hugely from her constellation too. Xingqiu provides DMG reduction, interruption resistance, and constant off-field Hydro application, with a bit of healing after his elemental skill. He's one of the two top-tier characters who can reliably trigger reactions like Vaporize and Bloom for your main DPS. Mavuika, again, doubles as a sub-DPS with her off-field Pyro application targeting all enemies in her area. She can still be a quick-swap powerhouse thanks to her insane scaling. Xiangling snapshots all buffs before her elemental burst, has frequent and consistent damage ticks, and is currently the best AoE Pyro DPS, especially paired with other Pyro units to battery her burst. Now for the S+ support tier. Furina is a universal buffer as long as you have a healer. Her HP drain opens up creative playstyles for characters without HP fluctuations, and Numa form healing is great for exploration. Xelanin provides resistance shreds across Pyro, Cryo, Electro, Hydro, and Geo, plus healing when conditions are met. She also has excellent vertical exploration capability. Bennett remains a top-tier support with his Elemental Burst healing, ATK buffs, and Pyro Infusion at Constellation 6, and his high-energy recharge lets him spam skills consistently. Ianson rivals Bennett in ATK buffs and healing, but requires characters that move around to maximize her buffs. Her buff indicator follows the character, so positioning isn't restrictive. Kazuha excels with swirl damage, boosting your party's elemental DMG and controlling crowds. His elemental burst increases elemental mastery in a wide area, giving serious reaction potential. Sitlali is a shield specialist for melt or freeze teams, also shredding Hydro and Pyro resistance. Her shield lasts longer than its cooldown, and she's more offense-focused than defense. Nahida as support offers up to 250 elemental mastery to the on-field character via her low-cost elemental burst. Constellation 2 unlocks multiple Dendro reaction-based buffs. Zhongli remains the ultimate defensive support. His shields are the strongest and most durable in the game while providing unconditional elemental resistance shred. In short, S+ tier is where flexibility meets raw power. Whether it's absurd scaling, constant off-field application, or universal utility, these characters make everything feel effortless and fun. And honestly, once you get your hands on them, your Abyss runs will never be the same. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.